Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Films. My name is Alan. We recently did a video looking at a list of war films that do a great job at showcasing the horrors of trench warfare. These are movies that were based on real events and moments in history. For many, trench warfare is a part of humanity's uncivilized past. It represents a time of great suffering and barbarous acts. Trench warfare makes us think of young scared men covered in mud, sleeping next to rats and their fallen comrades. These were side effects of humanity's great errors in the past. World War I was a sign that we had yet to evolve to our current civilized state. But the reality is they're wrong. Trench warfare still is a mainstay in modern combat. Trenches are still used on the Ukrainian-Russian border. They're still used on the Armenian and Azerbaijan border. They were also used in Syria by fighters as well. As weapons become more powerful and advanced, man will only continue to dig deeper until they finally feel safe enough to close their eyes for a night's rest. And as we continue into the future, I doubt our infantry soldiers will leave their picks and shovels behind. Even when we have interstellar travel and our space marines are knee-deep in alien guts, humanity will still seek shelter in the dirt when all else fails. And so today we'll be taking a look at 5 portrayals of trench warfare, but in science fiction. Star Wars is both past, present, and future. That's the way George Lucas designed it to be. It's a mishmash of allegories and political commentary that are designed to force the viewers to look at our own timeline a bit more carefully. Trench warfare has always been a huge part of Star Wars. Perhaps it's because the writers recognize the importance of such imagery and how it grounds some of the more futuristic elements of Star Wars warfare. During the Battle of Hoth, Imperial forces utilizing gigantic AT-AT walkers advance on a rebel trench line. A similar situation happens during the Battle of Crate as the First Order Zone walkers advance on a resistance trench line. The Clone Wars featured a bit less cover and concealment. We could probably blame the chips inside of the clones' heads and also the programming inside of all the battle droids. But even so, trenches were dug and filled up with able-bodied riflemen on both sides. The Battle of Mimban, which begins in the Clone Wars period and then extends into the first decade of Imperial rule, is heavily inspired by the Western Front of World War I. Just look at this concept art of the Battle of Mimban from Solo. If you can ignore the gigantic mechanical walkers with the lasers and Wookiees, well, then Solo's helmet almost looks like a British World War I Brodie helmet. So originally, the Mimbanese fought alongside the clone troopers when the Separatist droid army invaded their planet and tried to take it over. After the Empire took over, however, the clone army was replaced by stormtroopers and army troopers. Allies became enemies, and new trench networks and battle lines were drawn. Many of the individuals who served the Empire during the Battle of Mimban were conscripts or disciplinary cases like Solo, who flunked out of a more prestigious career path as an Imperial Flight Academy student. Life was brutal on the front and covered in mud and gloom. The no man's land was scarred by proton bomb craters and the footprints of gigantic walkers. Visibility and the Mimbanese natural stealth ability in mud meant that most battles were fought in the fog of war. Despite all of the advanced technology possessed by the Empire, their ground battles against the Mimbanese are still very reminiscent to our own timeline. But first, before we continue, a word from our sponsor today, NordVPN. Sometimes the best defense is not to take a shovel and dig a hole. Instead, it's all about concealing your identity so that your enemy can't find you in the first place. NordVPN protects your identity anytime you go online. All of your activities rerouted through one of their secure servers across the world. This also has the added benefit of getting around censorship and also regionally locked content on streaming websites like Netflix. It can also help you watch sports games that otherwise would be blacked out in your region. You can use NordVPN on up to 6 different devices, and there is a 30-day money-back guarantee. So check out the description down below for more information. This will give you 73% off of a 2-year plan plus 4 months for free. Don't forget to use our promo code GenerationFilms, one word. After the singularity created the first sentient machines, humanity began to panic in waves. Some panicked during the singularity. Some panicked when the machines established the nation of 01. Others panicked when 01's production of cheap and superior products brought the human global economy to its knees. But Operation Darkstorm is where humanity made its last and final mistake. The United Nations, in an attempt to starve the machines from their primary energy source, blotted out the sun with dark clouds and launched a massive land counteroffensive against the machine city. At first, humanity prevailed against Zero-1, which hastily armed its service and civilian-use robots with rudimentary weapons. The machines were no match for our tanks and guns, but soon after, the machines caught on, and using their superior industrial might, they started creating massive killing machines that tore our soldiers apart. Humanity once again reverted to trench lines in order to stop the machine offensive, but ultimately those trenches became our graves. Soon, the machine's massive mechanical armies look less like offensive weapons and more like human harvesters. When a force of aliens land in Western Europe and begin killing everything in their sight, humanity must adapt and face these new terrifying enemies. The mimic aliens were an extremely strange species and very adept at killing things. Their bodies rapidly shifted and contorted into different shapes, making them extremely hard to hit, but also very deadly. Humanity attempts to level the playing field by equipping its own soldiers with powered exoskeletons equipped with a massive amount of firepower. The United Defense Force has been building up resources for an invasion of mainland Europe across the English Channel. It's an invasion strategy that is reminiscent of Operation Overlord during World War II. Once again, Allied forces will storm the beaches at Normandy and attempt to drive the enemy from France. Once the UDF forces hit the beach, chaos ensues. The enemy has prepared firing positions and kill zones for their artillery. And so even with their robust exoskeletons, the soldiers of the UDF have to dig in or find bomb craters to hide themselves in. This isn't a traditional trench line, but it just goes to show us, even when equipped with advanced technology, human soldiers will continue to find shelter out of the line of sight of enemy fire. Although, even when they're hiding in a crater, there is some danger because, I guess, mimics can come from anywhere. The Space Marines of Warhammer 40k steal the show. They're massive, heavily mutated super soldiers who are extremely good at facing the many horrific Xenos that threaten the God King's empire. But ultimately, most civilians in the Empire will never see a Space Marine, even as the Tyranids or Orcs descend on their planets and begin massacring everyone. For most, their defense and lives depend on the Imperial Guard, or if they're really unlucky, just some local planetary defense force. These are mere mortals, using weapons that could potentially kill a Dark Eldar warrior or a Necron warrior, but more than likely will just piss them off and make them angry. The point is, the lone Imperial Guardsman is weak and easy to kill, but place them into a firing line, preferably in a prepared fighting position or trench line, add in a bit of volley fire, and they might just have a chance of surviving long enough for actual reinforcements to arrive. That is, if they don't get waylaid by demons in the warp along the way. The Warhammer 40k universe is just too terrifying to really exist in, so one of the best strategies to cope is by digging a hole with the shovel. The mobile infantry is the expendable and heroic ground force that defends humanity against the arachnid threat. Because of the size and strength of our arachnid enemies, the average mobile infantry soldier does not stand much of a chance in one-on-one combat. This is why the mobile infantry commonly deploy prefabricated bases with walls and other deterrents to make it harder for the bugs to get close and rip a soldier in half. But on the world of Roku-san, the mobile infantry make the mistake of digging trenches around the Roku-san military assistance base. Like really nice trenches lined with metal and stuff. This is probably where the mobile infantry make their biggest mistake though. Being mobile against the arachnids is quite important, and that's because the average arachnid warrior bug was a melee fighter. And whatever ranged weapons the bugs bring into battle are usually not line of sight, flat trajectory weapons that a trench could protect you from anyway. Instead, they have flamethrower bugs and bugs that lob massive energy balls. The trenches are really useless against the arachnids other than slowing them down momentarily as they're on their way to rip your head off. Because these aliens oftentimes swarm in large packs, it's a much better idea for the mobile infantry to actually be mobile, and preferably not even be on the ground in the first place. Because when the arachnids end up attacking Roku-san, they manage to take down the perimeter electric fence. Once they pass this barrier, they begin swarming into the trenches and filling them up with human corpses. Trenches aren't always a good idea, especially this massive one you can't really even see out of the top of. So there you have it, guys. Those are 5 different instances of trench warfare in science fiction. I think as long as we use infantry soldiers who aren't like completely armored head to toe or have like deflector shields on them, we'll still need a shovel to dig some fortifications. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, thanks for joining us today. My name is Alan, reminding you that life is a movie and you are the protagonist.